never felt more rookie in my life.
Sure.
I've been hot the last couple of days, so I asked for a fan. Yeah. They gave me this little rinky-dink handheld bought at the airport off Compton joint.
Hey!
Marcellus got a whole big, like, suit.
I don't know what you're talking about, big dog. Beverly Hills? Beverly Hills adjacent over there. And I got a wrist tie bar. I'm winning today. All right, let's get it started in the NFL. Damn, I'll feel for you. The draft is tomorrow, and we'll finally find out which team will pick former Ohio State star Justin Fields. Fields is expected to be a first-round pick, but some reports have his stock falling past the top 3. According to the undefeated, race, I said, could be a factor in the slide, saying, quote, make no mistake, Fields will be one of the first 5 quarterbacks taken in the draft, but the fact that he started the college season as the consensus #2 quarterback prospect before inexplicably dropping as low as the 5th quarterback at times in some mock drafts behind white players with lesser pedigrees is an indictment of an antiquated system as it pertains to black quarterbacks. Whoa. Acho, is race a factor in how Justin Fields is being evaluated?
So, any show, any quality conversation, I don't think the objective should be to prove one individual right or prove one individual wrong, but it should at least be to make you think.
Okay,
So
I'm hearing you.
The goal of this conversation for me is to at least make you, the viewer, think. Is race a factor in how Justin Fields is being evaluated? I cannot prove it is conclusively. But what I can do is look at context clues. Okay. And that's all I'm going to do in this block is look at context clues and make you all think. When I look at Justin Fields, he had always been the #2 quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence. He was a #2 quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence coming out of high school, all the way through college, the #2 quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence. He actually outperformed Trevor Lawrence in the semifinal game, so much so that people started to ask themselves, should Justin Fields be drafted ahead of Trevor Lawrence? But now, somehow in the last 2 months of being incredibly intentional and scrutinizing every attribute of quarterbacks, Justin Fields has fallen behind Zach Wilson, happens to be white. He's fallen behind Mac Jones, who also happens to be white. I'm not going to draw a conclusion, but I am going to look at context clues. Context clues for me look like this. Cam Newton, his freshman year at Florida, I believe he stole a laptop, threw it out the window, gets suspended, he had to transfer. We heard about that all the way through Cam Newton's college career and his draft evaluation process. Cam Newton was so good, still went #1 overall, but we heard about that character issue. We've heard about Justin Fields' character issues. I don't know where they've come from because he really hasn't done anything, but there were concerns about how much he loves the game. What we haven't heard much about is Mac Jones, who got a DUI his freshman year and put not only his life at risk, but other people's lives at risk, a 2-car accident. We ain't heard about that character issue. We ain't heard about any character issues except for Justin Fields. Again, I'm not saying it's because he's black. All I'm doing is looking at some context clues. I look at history, Sel, because sometimes history will tell you at least a little bit about the future. History will tell you a little bit about the present at a minimum. 2017, Mitch Trubisky gets drafted ahead of Deshaun Watson. Now, Mitch Trubisky went to a basketball school in North Carolina. Mitch Trubisky did not win a national championship, nor did Mitch Trubisky play against elite competition. Deshaun Watson played at Clemson, now a powerhouse, won a national championship against a powerhouse, and he didn't do it with a plethora of first-round wide receivers. He had Mike Wilson. He had Renfro. That was really about it as far as like just major powerhouse talent in that game and in the games of his career. Mitch Trubisky gets drafted with the #2 overall pick to the Bears, and Deshaun Watson gets drafted later on in that first round. I look at, and again, I'm just trying to make y'all think.
I'm thinking.
I look at the next year's draft with Patrick Mahomes also falling behind Mitch Trubisky. Excuse me. I look at the next year's draft with Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins. Now, I challenge y'all, don't have the hindsight bias of you know what actually happened, but Dwayne Haskins plays at a perennial powerhouse in Ohio State. He breaks every Big Ten record, and he breaks every Ohio State record, just about, the meaningful records. Throws for 50 touchdown passes in 1 season. Daniel Jones threw for 50 touchdown passes in 3 seasons. Daniel Jones, the fewest interceptions he ever threw in a season was 9. Dwayne Haskins, in his 1 phenomenal season, he only threw 8. Again, I can't tell you that race played a factor, but I'm just hard-pressed to believe that if there was a black quarterback who went to a basketball school like Daniel Jones did in Duke, who only threw for 27 touchdowns at best and 9 interceptions, and there was a white quarterback at Ohio State who threw for 50 touchdowns to 8 interceptions and broke every record, I'm just hard-pressed to believe that it would not have mattered. The last thing I will say before I pass this baton, and again, I'm just trying to make people think. Sam Darnold gets drafted number 3 overall to the New York Jets. Now, Sam Darnold threw for 26 more yards in his last 2 years than Lamar Jackson threw for in his last 2 years. Sam Darnold threw for the exact same amount of touchdowns as Lamar Jackson. Sam Darnold threw for more interceptions than Lamar Jackson. The difference, Lamar Jackson rushed for 3,000 more yards in his last 2 years than Sam Darnold. Baker Mayfield goes number 1 overall. Baker Mayfield won a Heisman. Lamar Jackson won a Heisman. We know how great Baker was in college. But then there are 2 quarterbacks, Josh Chosen Rosen and Josh Allen. Their college careers, their college abilities pale in comparison to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson doesn't run his 40-yard dash at the Combine or at Pro Day because he doesn't want people to look at him as a receiver. But Hall of Fame general manager like Bill Polian still alludes that Lamar Jackson should play receiver. Again, I can't conclusively prove that it's a race thing, and I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to make y'all think like I've had to think. If Lamar Jackson was white and rushed for 3,200 yards in his last 2 years, won a Heisman in his last 2 years, passed for the same amount of yards as Sam Darnold, but with fewer interceptions, would he have been the 5th quarterback taken? I just don't believe so. Y'all just chew on that and come up with your own conclusions. But I'm just here to make people think.
All right, I love it. Let me start off by saying race is not a factor in how he's being evaluated. And I can prove it's not being a part of this conversation exclusively. I'm thinking, you made me think, and once again, I will take those thoughts to reality and the evidence. I want to preface everything by saying what the wise scholar, Yoda, as I like to call him, said about race and racism. Racism is not dead, but it's on life support. Kept alive by politicians, race hustlers, and people who get a sense of superiority by denouncing others as racist. Thomas Sowell, my God. Okay, let me tell you why I brought that up, just to preface my argument. Because when you have to dig for racism, it probably isn't racism. My daddy always told me that because my daddy said, hey, it hit me right in the face. It wasn't no, oh, look around the corner, I think that's racism. Oh, squint your eyes, I think it's racism. My daddy said, when it's racism, oh, you're going to know it, big dog. So let's talk about this situation right here, because welcome to the big leagues, Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, this is called the draft grinder. This is called the draft process. They play rough, no gloves on. Ask Trevor Lawrence, who just 2 weeks ago was in the media cycle because people were saying, he doesn't even care about football. He has nothing to prove, no chip on his shoulder. And that's a cemented #1 overall generational talent in talking about Trevor Lawrence. So, why do I bring up Trevor Lawrence first? No one is touching Trevor Lawrence, even though their shots still fired at #1. So since he's cemented at #1, who are they going to come at next? #2. And who was #2? Justin Fields. Let me give you some advice, Justin Fields, big dog. It's a little late, but here it is for you going forward. If you're the guy that they're shooting at, don't give him anything of a target. And he gave him enough target. This is the problem when you're #2, but really the one that a Mac Jones, a Trey Lance, a Zach Wilson is shooting for, because nobody's going to hit Trevor Lawrence. This is what occurred. They looked at him and said, let's see how you perform in those 8 games. Let's keep this about the meritocracy, performance. And here we go. 2 years ago, you were 3rd in Heisman voting. You dropped down to 7th. Who cares? That's voters. Let's talk about on the field in those 8 games. Only 8 games. 3 games you had under 200 yards passing. Okay. 3 games with 60% completion percentage or lower. Ooh. Including 44% and only 114 yards against Northwestern. Now, how clutch is he, some people were asking? Because his 2 worst games were in championship games, Big Ten championship game and the national championship game. Interesting. When you talk about a prospect who we're going to try and beat up, like we tried to beat up Trevor Lawrence, he's just a guy we can't damage. We're going to come at you, Justin Fields. Everyone's talking about your athletic talent and how you believe so much in your talent that sometimes you will force it in tight windows. I don't have a problem with that. The guy has a superior arm and superior mobility. But then it gets highlighted. See, people don't talk about the positives that also aren't warranted. How fast does he run in the 40? 4.4, right? We all saw that. Mind blown, right? How come it didn't translate on the field when he only averaged 4.4 yards per carry? Give you a little context right here. Lamar Jackson, 8.3.